A Lawyer Crow Story by Ashton M. Tennyson. She stood on the balcony of her apartment, wearing her bathrobe like that of a gloss-lord queen. Dark and smooth as satin was the robe, and it caressed her figure as if it were a second skin, disguising herself from looking too human. And as Allie stood there, she had a cup of coffee, black as midnight, in hand, as she watched her gloss lords fly about the morning sky. It was just another cloudy day in the city, but that didn't matter to Allie. With her crows around, every day was a treasure. She fed them their breakfast of scrambled eggs and peanuts already, and they were flying about the air, cawing their happiness and appreciation to her. She cherished these moments with such love and enthusiasm. But her morning was briefly interrupted when a man exits his apartment to his balcony and shouts at her, shaking his fist at her, his face red with anger and eyes furrowed with that rage Allie knows all too well, but playfully enjoys within her mind. She smirks devilishly as the man yells at her from where he stands some distance to her left. She flips him off while he's yelling at her, shaming her for feeding the crows that show up at her balcony for food. This makes the man even more vehement with his words, and she gleefully watches as he takes out his cell phone and dials a number. Another report. Alrighty then. Not the first time this has happened, especially when it comes to this neighbor fellow in particular. And it's nothing more than a ray of sunshine to Allie's day. Nobody does anything to these kind of reports anyway these days. There is more concerning crime out there in the city than just a silly report about a woman feeding and respecting nature as she always has been doing. Crazy, they call her. Crazy for feeding birds who are seen as a disruptness to city folk. Evil, perhaps. But Allie never cared. Ever. She lives her life as she lives it, and if it requires feeding birds such as crows, so be it. The world doesn't revolve around a single person, as most people these days have forgotten. And she doesn't give a crap about anyone who thinks otherwise, even if she lives the rest of her life as a single woman, feeding her gloss lords and building bonds with nature. At least nature respects her more than those who wish to destroy ways to her own happiness. Right then, a crow swoops down onto the man's head, as if to attack, but it is clearly a playful bluff. The man cowers back indoors, with the phone still to his ear, making his report and saying, "Oh shit, one of them just tried to take my head off." As Allie cracks up with laughter, she gives off another smirk and looks to the crows who caw laughter of their own. What joys it was to have friends as these. She goes back into her apartment and closes the door behind her. She can't help but notice how the crows look through her door, watching over her, protecting her from whatever threat that comes between them and her. Rain began to pour onto the streets as Allie walked down the sidewalk of her apartment, the crows flying over her head and following her as if they are her protectors. She's dressed warmly in raincoat and scarf and has an umbrella in hand to keep herself from getting wet. Before she knows it, a red SUV is slowing down, and the driver's car window moves down to reveal another man, in his middle age, phone in hand, aimed right at her. Heckling her, shaming her, the man continues to follow her down the street. She smirks to herself again. This never gets old for her. This now was harassment being bestowed onto her, and the crows they fly about her bear witness to this behavior. She keeps walking, not letting it bother her. She takes out her own phone and aims to the man's direction to film his harassment. Another oxygen thief for the internet's amusement. What a joy. A crow lands on the hood of the car, cawing at the man. Other crows about the place do the same. The man moves his window up again and slowly drives away. Allie smiles. Her crow friend standing up for her as always, and they continue to follow her down the street and into a nearby bar. They follow her in, startling the people already within the establishment, holding their beers in hand and a woman missing a shot at the pool table. Allie doesn't care. She just keeps walking to the front counter and orders a beer. The few crows that came in with her perch on the counter and onto her shoulders and head. They call their orders. Peanuts, obviously. Allie requests this, and the burly man at the counter glares at her. This isn't the first time she's done this, but she pays the man off well to keep this arrangement going, despite complaints from the frequent bar-goers. And with the crows happily breaking peanut shells and eating the nuts within, Allie savors her beer all to herself with only the crows as her true company. And she couldn't be happier than being around her favorite earthly beings of all time, as the cigarette smoke swirls about the air of the bar and the jukebox plays Lana Del Rey. A crowbar moment that will never die in Allie's mind. Ever. The end.